Hello Bats and welcome back. Thank you for joining my channel again, and today I wanted to talk about why I skipped A Realm Reborn, and specifically with relation to my experiences in World of Warcraft. I am a new player to Final Fantasy XIV from World of Warcraft Shadowlands. I will do a separate video as to why I left in Shadowlands. But yeah. And if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Please leave a comment below about your thoughts. I know a lot of people have been commenting lately that I should not be doing this skip for ARR, and I want to emphasize, I will be going back and doing A Realm Reborn and learning all of the lore and doing the side quests, but there's a reason why I skipped. And just one quick thing before we continue, I am a self-published author, and I would like to present my book today. The Dancing Crow, very gory, very awesome. I bring the bite back to vampires. If you want a dystopic urban fantasy, you might want to visit that. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, switching from one MMORPG to another is a little bit difficult, especially since I've been playing World of Warcraft for about a decade. I joined at the end of Cataclysm, if anyone who's played World of Warcraft knows. It's when Deathwing, a giant dragon, ended up destroying everything. A lot of people have mixed feelings about Cataclysm, mostly negative, but that's when I joined World of Warcraft. Previous games I've played have included Diablo 1, at least I'm Diablo 1 veteran there, Age of Mythology, and Diablo 2. So I have some experience with Blizzard games. Oh right, yes, I've played StarCraft as well. And I'm not very good at it. But anyway, that gives you a little bit of background as to what sort of games I have played, with World of Warcraft being my only MMO and for so long. Now I want to get into what I did in World of Warcraft, and might do again if they end up fixing some of the problems I'll bring up someday. In World of Warcraft, your account collections, unlike Final Fantasy XIV, are entirely shared by characters, all of your characters. Now, I was a huge collector in World of Warcraft. I had almost 450 mounts, which is absolutely huge. Very, very many rare mounts in World of Warcraft, such as the Heavenly Onyx Cloud Serpent. Very rare. 1 in 10,000 drop, and everything like that. So my collections meant a lot to me. I collected pets. I have over 1,000 unique pets in the game as well. I was big into pet battles, which isn't something to brag about very much, but, you know, being a collector, why not, right? So how does this relate to story and roleplay anyway? Well, some of my characters had specific mounts and pets that they used in their story. I gave them personalities, connections to the character backstories themselves, and I'm even doing that in Final Fantasy currently with the companions. What are they called? Whatever they're called, the companions. That's what they're called in World of Warcraft. Anyway. So there was that, and I did not want to abandon my collections after building it over a decade, especially with all of the rare mounts that I had. It was so hard for me to actually leave the game, and I finally did. I was probably one of the last people to leave as a role player, and I'll get into why in a minute. But the other reason why I actually ended up not switching for so long was because I have probably at least over 25 characters that were max level in World of Warcraft, because I'm such an altaholic, and I absolutely love making OCs. And if people are interested enough, I will talk about some of my OCs here. I have transferred a couple of my main OCs, which are original characters for those who are new to the term, from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy, including Elias Cypher, who was a Blood Prince Stan Lane, vampire elf, to a Aura Zela, and my other vampire elf, Fallen, who ended up becoming a Mikote. And I've got a bunch of commissioned art for a bunch of my characters, so much story behind them. I ran a guild, a roleplay guild in World of Warcraft. It was called The Torn. It was a city of monsters. It was a very fun concept. Bunch of anti-heroes. They fought for the good of the planet, which is Azeroth, and essentially were a bunch of what's called kill-on-sight races, like Sand Lane, which are vampire elves, some demons, probably things like, we would allow gnolls probably if people wanted to play them, ogres if people wanted to play them, basically anything if it had a lore explanation that had free will, they could play it. And it would all live in relative harmony in the city of monsters, and that was what it was all about. Outcasts, regular people who were fine with living with monsters, who just wanted to fight for the good of Azeroth. Now, I don't think I'm going to transfer that guild concept over to Final Fantasy XIV. I ran the guild for so many years and a bunch of stories, and it was a wonderful time, but it took a lot out of me. There was a lot of drama behind it. Anyone who's a role player would know the amount of drama behind either guilds or FCs, anything like that. So, but would I do it again? Maybe. In Final Fantasy? I don't think so. It's difficult to get housing, maybe if I get one in Ishgard, but I'm so new to the game that the task just seems entirely daunting, and I haven't even started roleplay yet because I'm trying to finish up the post-patch of Shadowbringers, which it's been a horrible, busy week. Terrible week. So I'll get to that eventually. But yeah, so you can see the 3 reasons why it took me forever to leave World of Warcraft. It was because of my massive amount of collections, and I will actually link my character there for you to see just how I'm not lying and how much rare stuff I have on there. If you're a World of Warcraft veteran watching this, you'll understand what I mean. I had my characters, tons and tons of alts and story behind them, and I had my guild, which, again, a ton of story behind it, my entire community. Now, the interesting thing about my guild is a bunch of them are also switching to Final Fantasy XIV, so it's a very, very fun time. We're all talking about our characters and stuff. A bunch of guildies have actually left the community, which is fair after what's been going on, and people not really taking on the Shadowlands that well. So, what exactly does any of this have to do with skipping A Realm Reborn? Well, when it comes to my story, my lover did try to get me into Final Fantasy a few years ago, back when I was not having fun in Battle for Azeroth, because I didn't like that expansion either. I did not like the plotline at all. But I still had that attachment. It was still there. I was determined to continue our stories. I figured it was going to get better in this expansion. Shadowlands, when it came around, the concept sounded interesting. I liked it. I didn't like a lot of what I heard, but I was going to give it a chance and discovered that I absolutely hated it. But that's for another video. Here, I wanted to talk about how I still had this massive attachment. So I tried Final Fantasy XIV, I ran a Mikote, her name was Vanessa Phoenix Fire or something ridiculous like that. I didn't go with naming conventions. To tell you the truth, I wasn't taking it seriously. So back then, Final Fantasy XIV was not my style. It was a bit daunting, going from orcs, elves, dragons, which at the time, I didn't see in Final Fantasy because of A Realm Reborn, humans fighting orcs, and just the World of Warcraft in general, that old mythological feel, even though there was a little bit of technology, to this entirely new environment, new graphics of the game, of the MMORPG. It was so hard to get connected to. I could not get connected to it at all. So I didn't really give it much of a chance. I tried in A Realm Reborn. I was really bored. I just couldn't connect to the story well at all. And there's no good reason for it. I just could not. And I gave A Realm Reborn a chance up to roughly around level 20. Not good enough chance, obviously. I got hung up over the dungeons with Final Fantasy and being forced to do dungeons, which I wasn't a big fan of at the time, because as a World of Warcraft veteran, we know that the dungeon community is very, very toxic, and especially to new players, so I had that fear even back then about it. I don't have it now, of course. People have been very great to me in dungeons, and I've actually been having a good time and looking forward to doing them. Especially with friends, of course. But anyway, I just could not get connected to the story. It was a very big drag, and when I still had such a big connection to World of Warcraft, I just fell out of it. Couldn't continue, bored, and that's on me, of course, but I also am hard to please. Very hard to please, very, very picky. I've got to stick up my butt, and I'm not afraid to say it. So, when I was very dissatisfied with World of Warcraft Shadowlands because of the story, what exactly was I going to do? Well, a bunch of my friends were swapping to Final Fantasy XIV. I resented the game a little bit because a bunch of my friends were swapping to Final Fantasy XIV. I'm seeing everyone leave from World of Warcraft, and I'm getting frustrated, my lover did, and I'm just like, great. So I even actually had a tiny bit of resentment toward the game, so that was a little hurdle to go over. But I slowly eased out of that issue and began to look into it slightly more. I liked the ARR, obviously. Now I love the ARR, obviously. And my lover suggested that I skip A Realm Reborn because it's boring and I could look up the lore for a little bit on YouTube, or specific bits of lore, and I technically did not need it. I know a lot of people said, oh, well, actually, there's a bunch of gestures and things that you should pay attention to in characterization, which, yes, I do not recommend skipping A Realm Reborn for everyone. But, for me specifically, it actually helped me get connected to Final Fantasy XIV. as someone who's ridiculously picky, and that's a character flaw on my part, when it comes to any sort of media, books, video games, movies, it has to be heavy with fantasy, has to have dragons, has to have vampires. Oh, Final Fantasy doesn't really have a big presence of vampires, and that's fine. I can overlook that, but dragons are a big must for me. And so when my lover's like, oh, there's dragons in Heaven's Ward, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try this. And so I did. It took me a little bit to get connected in Heaven's Ward, and that's why I didn't talk about Hachafront a lot. I just couldn't really, like, connect very well at the beginning, but as I started playing things out, learning about Estinian, Nidhogg, especially Forteau, I really liked Forteau. I'm like, man, that guy, he looks like Dracula, I really like him, so I got connected to him that way. But just learning more and more about the story and how Final Fantasy did dragons, especially compared to World of Warcraft dragon lore, which I absolutely hate. I love dragons in World of Warcraft. Their lore I do not like. Anyway. But, you know, I really liked the dragons in Final Fantasy XIV, so that allowed me to connect to it more. I got to learn a bit more about the Empire in Heaven's Ward, more about Moogles, as I explained to in my other video. But in general, I got to become more connected to the Scions, and this is the first time I actually connected to the Scions. Now, when I did try A Realm Reborn way back when, I do remember Ida and Palomino? God, I can't remember. I'm terrible with names. Maybe I got it right, though. A tiny bit of Connie Senna? Okay, yep, I got it right that time. Yep. Tiny bit there, because I started off as a bard in Gridania. And, but not much beyond that. I didn't really get connected to them very much then. So in Heaven's Ward, where I could make this true connection and really get into the story, that was the big breaking point for me, and that's what allowed me to get attached to Final Fantasy. By the end of Heaven's Ward, I was all in. I was really excited. I really liked Final Fantasy grew on me, finally. Stormblood strengthened that. I really did like Stormblood. And I liked, they did ruin one character for me. I did say in one of my other videos, I think it was my first one on Final Fantasy, that I liked Hien. Okay, I want to correct myself in this video before anyone continues. I left a comment there, but it's not enough. I do not like him, actually. I want to correct, I had forgotten what he did when it came to the trafficking issue in the post-Stormblood patch. Absolutely hated it. So, wanted to mention that, make a correction from my past video. I know it's nothing to do with this video, but anyway, important for me to say that. Do not like him because of that issue. I wish that they would address that, and maybe, I don't know what they could do to fix it, but it made me very, very uncomfortable, personally. Anyway, people will know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. Anyway, that aside. So skipping A Realm Reborn actually allowed me to become attached to the game when transitioning from World of Warcraft and being so attached for the 3 reasons I mentioned to Final Fantasy XIV. Now, as I said, as you can see behind me, I'm a big collector, so a lot of my collections, be it stories from my characters, digital items, whatever, I like them. It's just a fun thing I like to do. Thank goodness I'm not a rare collector outside of video games, and probably won't be in Final Fantasy XIV, because man, it is tough to chase rare stuff, I swear. Anyway, I mean, actually, there's no other high like getting a rare drop in a game. Oh, it's a specific type of high. It's really nice. People know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. Anyway, so with all of those attachments, it made it such a hard thing to switch from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy. And again, the other thing is being attached to World of Warcraft's story. It took Shadowlands to completely sever that, and it's the way they handled the lore. Oh my goodness. Again, that's for another video, but I wasn't happy about it, and so I swapped to Final Fantasy XIV. And skipping A Realm Reborn, which was a drag to me personally when I first experienced it, was important. Now, let me get into why this might not be a good thing for everyone. I am a story person, and those who are looking to learn lore and stuff should probably drag through it. My case is strange. I mean, I might have a stronger attachment than most people to World of Warcraft. It took me so long to actually break from it as a role player. And any reasonable role player would go through A Realm Reborn, but with my many issues and just getting bored just too fast, and it's just a me thing. It's a me problem. So I don't recommend it for most people. If you are like me and the way I describe things, it would be good for you possibly to sever those detachments and get right into the really rich story of Final Fantasy. But most people will warn you against doing so, and I would warn you against doing so too if you're interested in the story. And the reason why I say this is because I will be going back to do A Realm Reborn, and I will be dragging through it, because now that I'm attached to Final Fantasy XIV, and I finally like the story and the game, and I really am into it, and just the enthusiasm of the community, I can really, really appreciate A Realm Reborn, as it should be, and learn about all the little side stories, the beast races, which I really like, and make those connections between Heavensward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers. Now, like I said in my last video, I did not skip a Crystal Tower, or well, rather, the skip came with the Crystal Tower skip, but I went on YouTube and I watched someone play out the Crystal Tower, so I was able to get attached to Grahatia. I don't know if I said his name right. Graha. Yeah, okay, it is Grahatia. I'm an idiot. Anyway, so certain things, like if you are going to skip A Realm Reborn, talk to Final Fantasy friends if you have them, and talk about what you would want to not skip for specific things, like the Crystal Tower questline for Shadowbringers. Definitely should do that before going into Shadowbringers at least. Do it or watch it, I don't care, but it's important for the characterization there. So to World of Warcraft veterans out there who might be thinking of switching, and I don't think I gave very many spoilers here in this video, maybe I did, but if you really can't get connected to the game because of A Realm Reborn, the skip might be a good idea, but make sure, if you like the story and you really want to get connected to the story, which Final Fantasy XIV is important for, the story, you're going to want to go back and do A Realm Reborn, so... Well, anyway, I am done with my rambling for the night. Hopefully I'll have a coherent video to show by the end of this. I'm probably not going to edit out what I just said either, because I'm weird like that. I also have my egg I've been playing with today. I have ADHD, so, and anxiety, unfortunately. So I needed this to get through the video a little bit more easily. I'm a nervous person, you know, like a, what is it, a shaking Pomeranian in the corner or something? I don't know, I see myself as a little gothic black Pomeranian. I even have the collar on, right? So, there we go. Or a bat, though. I like bats the most. Bats are amazing. So, anyway, thank you for paying attention to my rambling. I hope that my perspective on this whole fiasco is interesting. I will talk more about my roleplay experience in World of Warcraft sometime. For Final Fantasy players who are watching this, I will use it in more, like, understandable terms. I won't jargon it all. I will just explain calmly about, oh, well, this is what this race means, and if I feel that I need to elaborate a bit more. But it also won't be a slog if there's a World of Warcraft player watching and wanting to know a World of Warcraft roleplayer experience as well. I am looking forward to Final Fantasy XIV roleplay and seeing how that fiasco goes. I am very much a darker roleplayer. I like dark plot lines, putting my characters through some really dramatic, I'll say, plot lines when it comes to things like battling, etc., to character build, but also party and hangout roleplay is fun too. I'll see how Final Fantasy handles that. Really looking forward to housing. I've got to grind out some of my storm seals, company seals, whatever the hell, so that I can unlock housing, at least to get an apartment for now. But yeah, and as I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to check out my books, because I am a self-published author, you will see the link in the description below. And again, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this for more content, and yeah, if there's a specific thing you want me to cover sometimes as a World of Warcraft player, please let me know. No, I will not be talking about Goldshire. I've never been there before. I mean, you know, anything outside of curiosity anyway. I've never been to Goldshire. But that's not my roleplay experience. I do darker roleplay. I don't do really relationship roleplay unless it has anything to do with the story. If it has something to do with the story, all game, but not my thing that much. I don't do roleplay partners. Not that there's anything wrong with roleplay partners, of course, but it's just not my thing. I like doing larger scale roleplay. Anyway, bye! Have a nice night or day whenever you're watching this.